Hi, I'm Camille Sharp,
I'm Travis Smith.
and our article's on the antibiotic use in U.S. swine and poultry production. So just the background, for the U.S. to keep up with the increased demand for food, antibiotics were introduced in the 1950s to promote growth and prevent disease, which quickly became an essential part of the new agriculture production model. Antibiotics are used primarily in intensive swine, poultry, and feedlot cattle systems, with limited use in dairy cows and sheep. In the U.S., antibiotics are commonly used in livestock to prevent disease, promote growth, and treat the sick. The continuous use of antibiotics as a growth promoter due to the growing concern of antibiotic resistance, research shows that if a policy further limiting antibiotics for animal production purposes is enacted in the U.S., it could impact not only the animals themselves, but also the producers at the farm level and the market for poultry and pig meat. Based on the most recent data from the Agriculture Resource Management Survey conducted in 2011, they looked at three main questions associated with the potential economic effects of a policy restricting antibiotics for production purposes in poultry and swine. The first one is current extent of the antibiotic use for production purposes and disease prevention. The second is effects of restricting production purposes uses on animals and farms. And the last one is effects of production purpose restrictions on prices and quantities produced of swine and poultry. The study also showed that 48% of farmers surveyed that they used antibiotics only for disease treatment. 30% did not know if antibiotics were used only for disease treatment. This would be for contract growers. And 20% used antibiotics for purposes other than disease treatment. Additionally, between 2006 and 2011, poultry raised without antibiotics except for disease treatment rose from 44 to 48%. Although not completely accepted by all, the use of antibiotics in swine and poultry production has become a staple in many producers' operations to maximize production output. It is estimated that by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration that 14.6 million kilograms of antibiotics were sold for use in animals in 2012. That's more than 4 times the 3.29 million kilograms of antibiotics sold for human use in 2011. The main concern with the use of antibiotics in animals and the increased drug-resistant pathogens that could potentially be transmitted to humans, which brings rise to many more questions such as the magnitude of pathogens, potential impact on humans. And then we'll move on to the underlying economics. So the incentives for U.S. livestock producers to use antibiotics is improved animal performance, higher profits, and reduced production risks. A ban on antibiotic growth promoters in the U.S. would have different effects on producers based on the size, location, production practices, livestock, and the stage of production they're in. The effects of a ban on antibiotic use in swine and poultry have shown limited effects, although there would be a small decrease in supply, as seen in this graph. If supply increases, then the price is also going to increase with that. I guess it's decreasing.
Yeah.
Okay. So in addition to the U.S. banning antibiotic growth promoters would increase export market access to countries such as the European Union, Mexico, and Taiwan, who have more strict regulations on antibiotic use. Lastly, U.S. consumers may demand more meat, although this is highly dependent on consumer knowledge and preferences for meat. This graph just shows the increase in demand and the basis of the increase in price. The economic impact of an antibiotic ban will largely depend on the extent of the effects on the animal and the lifespan in which production purpose antibiotics would be potentially banned. And then Travis will move on to the implications for agriculture.
For the implications for agriculture, there are 3 major inputs in animal food production: feed, labor, and capital, which can be improved in some operations with the use of antibiotics. One of the current benefits of antibiotics is maintaining animal health in older facilities where management practices are less efficient. Limiting the use of antibiotics for production purposes could potentially have several effects on the animals, such as slower growth to market weight, more feed required per unit of weight gain, higher illness rates among all animals, a higher death rate in young animals, and lower reproduction. The use of antibiotics as growth promoters have proven to reduce the variability in animal weights and sizes, which prevents producers from receiving penalties at animal markets. Additions of antibiotics to swine feed have also shown to reduce the mortality rate in young pigs by 50% and increase their daily weight gain. Livestock responses to antibiotic growth promoters are lower when production conditions are optimized with good housing, hygiene, health, and nutrition. Overall growth responses have declined over the last 30 years. Potential causes could be 1. Improved animal welfare practices through optimized production conditions, which limits the need for antibiotics. 2. Increasing levels of resistance could be declining the overall effectiveness of antibiotic growth promoters, although there is limited data supporting this. Fewer antibiotics will lower the cost of use for production purposes should they be banned, but this could instead lead to higher veterinary costs for disease treatment as well as higher input costs. Also, a ban on the use of antibiotics for production purposes could mean more feed required, a greater number of young animals purchased, the need for more expensive biosecurity measures, adjustments in housing to create more space per animal, and declining economics of scale. In terms of food security, a balance between using antibiotics to control disease and limiting the spread of antibiotic resistant needs to be found, which could be achieved through better hygiene management.